Well, welcome to Skills to Pay the Bills, and today's segment is JustAskFreeman.com. I'm your host, Freeman Owen Jr. Sitting next to me is my lovely co-host, Carolyn Owen. Carolyn, we got a lot to talk about today. What we're discussing.
Yes, we do. Freeman, today we're going to share a few recommendations on setting up financial solutions for the young couple with children. We're also going to talk about the young college graduate who just landed their first job and is confused about what benefits to sign up for. And then we're going to talk about having adequate health care and the pitfalls that can occur without it.
Exactly.
And finally, if time permits, we're going to talk about those caring, loving, caring caregivers who are caring for their aging parents and relatives. And we're going to give them some tips in how to take care of themselves while they're taking care of others.
All right. Now, first thing what we want to cover is let's discuss life insurance. Now, Carolyn, some of our viewers don't have life insurance coverage, and others have coverage, but that coverage is inadequate. So I want to cover that. And then we have viewers that are not properly set up for retirement. So we're going to discuss that, and then we'll talk about the pitfalls of procrastination, and we'll give some possible and viable solutions to some of these challenges. But first, let's see what we can do to recommend for this young couple.
Yes, what would you recommend for a young couple? If they have two children, they're making $50,000 a year combined salary. They have term life insurance for $25,000, and the dimensions of children's ages are 3 and 4. And the question is, and they have a term life insurance policy for $25,000.
Right.
So the question is, what happens if they procrastinate until they're 45 years old?
Okay, well, let's fast forward to 44 and 44 and 45 years of age for that couple. But we have to consider the fact that they have children now at 14 and 16 respectively. So they're in a whole different financial situation. Their posture has changed, number one. There's preparation for these children to either enter college or obtain a skill set so they can become independent. At 45, you usually start thinking about, will I have enough money for retirement? That's something else to consider. Along that 10-year journey, they may have purchased a home. Now I'm going to back it up a little bit to the present. Now we got a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, a couple earning in excess of maybe around $50K.
Yeah, combined salaries.
All right. Now, one thing they did do is they did purchase term insurance. Inadequate. It's not enough. The loss of income of either one of the spouses in income, it would be devastating for the children and the widow or the widower. So therefore, I would recommend term. It's reasonably priced. They can utilize it. It can expand 10 years, 20, 30 years. And it's also helpful, I look at term as a life insurance program that would replace income. It could finance the children's education, all righty. And as I said, it's reasonably priced. Now, they've saved $5,000.
Yes, that's what I had.
That's a good start, because I think it's pretty good considering they live in an apartment. I'd like for them to set aside funds possibly for thinking about retirement, because why? Well, they can save less at 34 and 35 than they could at 45. And then, of course, at age 45, they got to consider the fact that, in a few years, I'll be eligible for Social Security, Medicare. We're going to talk about that a little later on in either this segment or the next segment. But at this point, I would ask you to email us at Freeman at JustAskFreeman.com. And I could provide for you information in reference to the different types of insurance policies that are available: term, whole life, universal life, index universal life. But now I want to talk about that second
college graduate
example. Yes.
Yes. Now this involves a recent college graduate who just landed her first job. She's making $38,000 a year now.
Right.
She also has paperwork from the company, and she's confused as to what paperwork to sign up for. But she sees that the company does offer retirement help. They offer 5% a month retirement.
I like that.
So she's happy with that, and she does have cost term insurance and health insurance.
All right.
And she has $100 in savings.
Just landed her
Yes,
first
just
apartment.
landed her first apartment. So it's this lady on a good track, and what should she be doing so that she can ensure a good retirement?
Well, yes, she is on a good track. Here's why. Number one, in this example, we didn't mention the fact that she had any school loans. You know, a lot of our millennials have hundreds of thousands of dollars in school in debt, loans they obtain while trying to complete their education.
And you know, also the credit card companies are almost like sharks for these young people, trying to get them to go into debt with credit cards.
Exactly.
We don't know if she has credit card debt.
That's right, and inundated with credit cards. So this is where this young lady would have to manage credit card debt, and also since she has $100 in savings, all right, I would recommend that she increase her savings. Don't need too much life insurance right now, because she doesn't have the responsibility of a child or spouse, or where there would be a need for a lot of coverage. Now, I want to address that the problem that she may have, or she indicated that she has, in understanding the benefits that are offered by her employer. All right. Well, go to your HRA administrator and get the definition and define very well what the benefits are described to you in detail. I know that when we were in school, still applies today. When we got out of school and we had our first professional positions, we were given benefits or offered benefits. Well, we got in a little detail and found out how the benefits worked, and that's critical. Now, suppose she doesn't get the satisfaction of understanding how these benefits work. She should seek a financial professional to help her maybe interpret some of the benefits that are available to her. I would, and I'll tell you something else, Carolyn. Love that 5%.
Yes.
The 5% match is a premium, because today you only have 7.2% of the companies in the United States even offer a pension. And she has an employer-sponsored retirement account where there's a 5% match. So I would recommend, hey, put 5% with that, or an additional 10%. Good salary, starting off with very little debt. Of course, she got to get apartment insurance, all right? But later on down the road, she may opt to purchase a home, okay? And she may have a union coming in the upcoming years. We can look at the fact that there may be COLAs, cost of living adjustments, along the way. So at this point, a young lady here in her, I'm assuming that she's in her 20s, she can save a small amount of money in order to prepare for her retirement. But if she doesn't have a lot of debt, it seems that she doesn't, not only matching that 5% with 5 or either 10% in that employer-sponsored retirement account, fully funded, because she'll be glad she did, because in her 30s and 40s, she's got a nice 20, 25, 30-year timeline there. And also she can tolerate more risk and more recovery when you're dealing with market risk. So I would recommend that if she has, going back to the paperwork and what to sign up for, seek help outside with a financial professional that maybe can help her interpret the benefits. And if you want more information about that for some of our viewers, just go to, just email us at freeman@justaskfreeman.com. Now, Carolyn, I'm gonna pivot a little bit here. I know that we don't talk much about health care. But our health care system appears to be very volatile, with so many changes and multiple programs and services that the American public does not understand. All righty. We have to say that our nation's healthcare system has to be, I guess, sort of revamped in order that American citizens receive decent health care. And I'm going to talk about some of the pitfalls to individuals and families who do not have any or adequate health insurance. All right? So I want you to share your experiences with me as a professional that was in the healthcare field. And then we'll talk about the five, once we finish with the healthcare, we'll talk about caregiving. But first, let's talk about healthcare.
Well, you know, there have been so many changes to the health care. We started off with the Affordable Care Act, and that has been taken away. But what has been replaced with is a little unclear.
Well, let me add this. With the affordable health care, what we had here is, with its inception back in 2010, the purpose basically was to provide health insurance to individuals who had pre-existing conditions. Let me elaborate a little bit more too on that. A lot of the millennials, and what I've seen and heard, is that they felt that, well, we're healthy, we're just paying in to help those who are sick. And today I don't think we have too much in preventive health care. So again, the Affordable Health Care Act was for those who had pre-existing condition. It offered health coverage to basically all people. Now, let's talk about Medicare.
Okay.
Let's shift that a little bit here. Your Medicare, alrighty. I just got a great report here. Medicare Trust Fund will be exhausted in 2026, which is about 3 years earlier than expected. Now, that depletion date is blamed on lower payroll taxes, all right, less revenue from taxing Social Security, and higher than expected spending. Now, that main trust fund behind Medicare, the Board of Trustees blamed the early depletion, as I mentioned, as in the past years. They have determined that the fund is not adequately financed over the next 10 years, all right? Now, each year, the trustees projected long-term finances of Medicare covers about 58 million Americans, and Medicare spent $710 billion in 2017, according to this report. Now, let me share with you what the trust fund pays for. But first, we're going to take a break.
Okay.
And audience, I want you to stay with us. You're viewing us here on Skills to Pay the Bills on the segment of JustAskFreeman.com. And we'll be right back. Stay with us. Thank you for joining us on Skills to Pay the Bills in today's segment of JustAskFreeman.com. Today we're sharing our opinions on some of the things our viewers can do to help you and your family during our current economic instability. You know, in that last segment we were just talking about Medicare.
Yes.
I want to share with our viewers, the Medicare Trust Fund pays for hospital visits, nursing care, and related services, and under what is known as Part A of the program. This was created back in 1965, according to this report. Medicare Part B, which covers outpatient visits, and Part D, which pays for most prescription drugs. Now, you had mentioned the fact that, well, before I go into Medicaid, there was some issue you wanted to address.
Yes, I just want to share about the Medicare funding that also hospitals, nursing homes, those skilled care facilities rely or depend a lot on Medicare funding. So when we're talking about the funds being exhausted, you have to wonder about the impact that would have on the facilities that we use for our health care.
Exactly. And since we have an aging population, 10,000 folks turn age 65 every day. Now, you know Medicare is mandatory, that at age 65 you must take, your Medicare becomes your primary provider, while your own private health insurance becomes the secondary. Yes. All right. Now, of course, now I'm going to talk about Medicaid, but now remember, Medicare does not cover long-term care. Long-term care is where the individual cannot perform 2 activities of daily living, in which we take for granted, like feeding oneself, bathing oneself, dementia, Alzheimer's. So that leads into Medicaid. Medicaid, in my view of it, is basically for long-term care. Now, some folks actually use Medicaid in their planning for retirement already. Of course, our firm does not offer Medicaid retirement planning. Okay, we go a different avenue with that. But Medicaid was designed, it's for the disabled, children, aid-dependent children, lower-income folks, and of course, a lot of folks, as I mentioned, use it as a means for skilled care. The average stay in a nursing home runs you 2.9 years. The cost of skilled care now is almost prohibitive. And that leads us to, when we talk about skilled care, Carolyn, that brings us to the front of the caregiver. Now, you know, the care of seniors and aging parents touch the heartstrings of many of our viewers out here. We like to give our viewers some information. If they had to move aging parents in a home with illnesses like dementia, Alzheimer's, and many offsprings of aging parents are still working with the kids of their own. So now they're managing their finances and their parents' finances as well. I've seen many a client, Carolyn. One of the questions I ask is, do you have aging parents? And the other question is, do you have adult, or I should say dependent adult children? There's a squeeze on your finances. We're going to talk about that. So you're handling your finances, your parents' finances, okay, and trying to aid your dependent adult kids as well. What would you say to people who are caring for their loved ones? It's important to get legal counsel. What are the 5 things that
you have to get legal counsel? And I just want to share briefly that the caregiving role is a very demanding role. People become angry, frustrated,
anxiety,
depressed. They have their busy work, and on top of that, they're trying to care, and they have their family schedules. Then they're trying to take care of the loved one, and in time, that they can begin to feel guilty as their stamina wanes. So yes, we're going to give some help to the caregivers and some advice and tips on that first, on the new caregivers.
Exactly. There are 5 steps to help for caregivers. Let's start first with the diagnosis. Learning about a family member's diagnosis. How does that help?
Well, that's the keystone, because once you understand the member's diagnosis, that helps you plan for better care and helps you to foresee what to expect realistically.
Exactly. And then we have finances. And of course, the healthcare wishes, at which the conversations can be very difficult.
Those conversations are difficult because you're talking about what your plans are for your loved one when they can no longer speak up. Now, I'll just give briefly about my brother. He was our power of attorney for my parents' medical and their finances, and that was a tremendous help for us because the trust we had in our brother, and we knew that he was carrying out my parents' wishes. So that helps to relieve the anxiety
and better prepare for the future as well. You know, I was there. A team of 5. Okay.
Yes.
Each of your siblings had a role in the caregiving. It was a lot simpler. It was organized. everything fell into place. Both parents had 24/7 care. My situation, as the only, all right, adult and no siblings at the time, it was quite a strain and a challenge too, because I was running the business, I got a family,
We were both working.
and
at
both
the time.
working, and children, and so on my part, I had to play the role of all 5 of your siblings: durable power of attorney, executor for the estate, just to name just a few things I had to do. Being there. And carrying out the wishes of my parents. But that was quite a challenge, but we went through, and it worked out pretty well. Now, speaking of finances, alrighty, let's consider, well, after we talk about the finances, let's consider, we should indicate here that inviting family and close friends to come together and discuss the care need if possible. What do you think about the recipient participating in the planning?
Well, that is vital. If the care recipient can be in the meeting,
right.
Because that way you're sure that you're carrying out their wishes, and they have a chance to say what they would like, and also it gives the caregiver a chance to say what their needs are,
right.
And plan for care and to ask for assistance. And I just want to emphasize, it's so important to get help.
It is.
If you can.
You can get help. Matter of fact, you can take advantage of community resources such as Meals on Wheels and adult day programs. What do these resources do, Carolyn? How do they help?
But they're so helpful because they relieve the workload. And also that way you know your loved one is being cared for in adult care, and then you can do what you need to do, but your loved ones getting their care also. So
Okay,
it's very helpful.
See, that is very, very helpful. These resources, help with the educational programs. It increases knowledge and confidence. Folks, find support. That is key.
That is the most important thing for the caregiver, so that they don't become isolated as they take on more responsibility and their social life moves more to the background.
Okay, that's important, Carolyn. But I just mentioned just a few minutes ago how it was rather stressful for me, being the only participant in the caregiving of aging parents. There's an impact on physical and emotional health.
But I want to say too that when you're talking about support, you have online and in-person groups now.
That's right, you do.
That can be helpful. I'm not sure if we had that at the time that your mom was ill.
That's right. That is true. But I tell you what, there's an impact on your physical and mental health. We've got recent medical advances.
Yes, you have recent medical advances. You have shorter hospital stays. You have shorter discharge planning. And with the better management of chronic illnesses, people are living longer. So you have a person coming home that's sicker for a longer period of time.
Exactly.
And families are the ones that are usually the primary caregivers of that. So.
And shoulder the greater burdens for longer periods of time. In addition to that, the care is even more complex. We've got conflict and demands of jobs and family. Okay. Then increasing economic pressure. And the physical and emotional demands of long-term caregiving, it can result in major impacts on the caregiver as far as health is concerned.
Yes.
And I want to add too, Carolyn, overall caregivers who experience the greatest emotional stress tend to be whom?
They tend to be females.
Exactly. They're at risk.
Yes, they're at risk for frustration, for anxiety, exhaustion, anger, depression, and if they tend to use substances like alcohol or other substances, there may be an increased use of that. Their immune response is less or poor, and sometimes they neglect their own health in trying to care for others, and the mortality rate of caregivers is higher than non-caregivers.
Exactly. And it seems like the caregiver is ill prepared for their role and provide care with little or no support, yet there is a percentage, Carolyn, or you could tell me about, of the caregivers who continue to provide intense care to others.
Well, at least a third of the caregivers do that, and they continue. And the primary reason that they put a person in long-term care facility is the caregiver's own physical health.
Exactly. And I said the average stay is 2.5 years, or 2.9 years, almost 3 years.
But the caregiver, the family caregiver, if they're able to, is sometimes able to cut 1.5 years
Off that stay.
They stay in the long-term care facility.
Exactly. Well, let's look at the financial pressures now.
And then I want to give some tips on resources.
Oh, okay. All right. You can either provide that and then we can go to the financial issues, or we could talk about the financial issues first. Oh, well, as a matter of fact, we only have 36 seconds left.
Yes.
You know, like it looked like we're running out of time. The clock on the wall is telling us. But before we leave, I want to remind our viewers to email us at freeman@justaskfreeman.com to get a copy of our free toolkit about retirement and Social Security strategies. We also have for you a copy or a listing of the facilities and organizations that are available to you when it comes to caregiving. And I want to thank you for watching Skills to Pay the Bills in today's segment of justaskfreeman.com. And Carolyn and I will see you next week for another great segment.